Hello YouTube. This is going to be kind of an unusual video for me, as I'm not reading from any of my stories or talking about my stories. Instead, I'm going to be discussing a serious subject which has been of some interest to me for some time, and which very recently popped up in my life again. Namely, that subject is, what is race realism? As I said, serious subject. So, before I begin, I want to establish a couple of things that I think it's very important to know. For starters, my qualifications to speak on this. The answer to that is not much, but more than most of the jokers on the internet talking about this. To wit, I have spent several years researching racism, including systemic racism, critical race theory, various other subjects, usually stuff that pops up as part of the that pops up into the Overton window and becomes part of the political discourse. I then dive into this stuff and research it. But this has been going on long enough that I've spent several years looking into racism and the various varieties of ick that come with it. As far as accomplishments go, I've written a very widely cited essay on Wikipedia entitled "No Fucking Nazis." Actually, they changed the name to No Nazis, but if you go to Wikipedia and type in WP:"No Fucking Nazis," all one word, you will still get to that essay, which is what I originally titled it. Basically, that essay explains why racist ideologies are fundamentally incompatible with editing Wikipedia. I also wrote the FAQ, which is currently featured on the talk page of the Wikipedia article on race and intelligence. And several years ago, I burned through all the remaining good faith I had on that site in order to get a pernicious, longtime editor who was a well-known racist and pedophilia apologist, for all things, banned from editing. And Emil Kierkegaard, if you happen to see this, that was me. This is the face of the guy that got you banned from editing Wikipedia. I hope you rot in hell, you worthless fucking bastard. Anyways, next thing I want to state, in case you haven't caught on by yet, racism is bad, okay? 20 years ago, I never would have thought I would have need to be clear on that, but I'm going to be in here disagreeing with some things that a lot of anti-racist people regularly say, so it is important for me to be clear. Racism is bad. It needs to be said. Thanks, MAGA. The next thing is that I want to state categorically that race realism is comprised entirely of pseudoscience and fraud. Okay? It's hate. Well, no, there's some hate in there too. There's hate, there's pseudoscience, and there's fraud. To be very clear on this, there's absolutely no scientific merit to the notion that the fundamental beliefs behind these kinds of racist ideologies, that race is a purely biological construct, or that it has any meaningful impact upon an individual's inherent ability to contribute to society, has any basis whatsoever. Finally, I want to be clear about my own biases in case you haven't caught on. For starters, I'm actually making this video in response to a very brief argument I had with a somewhat larger leftist creator on TikTok. That creator accused a friend of mine of being a race realist based on a statement which my friend made, which that creator took issue with. Perhaps ironically, that very brief discussion ended when that creator pointed out my race and said that meant I had no right to talk to him. Finally, as some of you may know, I am a man with some very, very strong opinions about what we, as a society, should do with unrepentant racists. Okay, so to begin, we need to define the term race realism. To be clear, race realism is a dog whistle. It is not a serious term. Anybody who is using the term race realist, you should be suspicious of. It is very weird to me to see someone who is so obviously a leftist content creator, a person of color themselves, using the term in this way, which is kind of what made this notable enough for me to feel the need to make this video on it. But 99% of the time, if you hear the term race realist, it is someone describing themselves as that thing, and it is a dog whistle. It is intended to whitewash pseudoscientific racism. Okay, that I guarantee if you hear someone ever describe themselves as a race realist, they are then going to go on to start claiming statistics and studies that, if you actually look into them, you will find out are either bullshit or were done with explicit racist motivations. Okay. So the idea behind it is to get that word realism or realist in there and imply that their beliefs on race are grounded in reality. That is not true. And as a term, I think it's problematic for anyone who is opposed to racism to be using that term in any way to refer to anything other than the actual dog whistle of the term itself. Because the implications remain. Even if we were to start referring to all scientific racism, which should be referred to as pseudoscientific racism because that's what it is, even if we were to start all referring to that as race realism and mocking race realism, you still have those implications that it is realism. You know, the word race in that phrase functions as an adjective. I don't like it. We should be referring to this stuff as pseudoscientific racism, not referring to it as race realism, and not, even though Wikipedia itself does this, referring to it as scientific racism, because it is not scientific. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, the problem in this particular case was that someone had stated that race is a purely sociological construct, okay? And I understand race is a sociological construct as a phrase is highly recognizable, okay? We've heard that all a million times before. There is a lot of truth to it. The problem is that it's not wholly accurate, okay? The entire concept of race is rooted in visually observable phenotypical traits in people, right? Skin color, hair texture, the shape of certain facial features, stuff like that. These traits are very obviously rooted in biology and genetics, okay? So, like the people who identify themselves as race realists generally will assert that since there are observable differences between so-called races, there must be fundamental differences between them, and that is a vast mischaracterization of what science actually has to say on it, which is that the differences between individuals is greater than the differences between so-called racial groups, okay? Just to put this into context, about 0.1% of our DNA controls the differences between any two given people out there. And of that 0.1%, only about 10% of that, or about 0.01% of our DNA overall, controls the features that define what quote-unquote race we are, okay? So why do people keep saying that race is a sociological construct? Well, because there is a sociological construct of race. The concept of whiteness, blackness, redness, brownness, yellowness, those are sociological constructs. The idea that white people behave a certain way, the idea that that me as a person of predominantly Irish and Norwegian ancestry have more in common with someone of predominantly, let's say, Polish and Romanian ancestry than I have in common with someone of West African ancestry. That is a sociological construct. That is purely sociological. That is something that we made up as a society in order to justify the fact that we didn't want to be nice to people who didn't look like us. Yeah, so there is this sociological construct of race. So a lot of times when we're hearing like science popularizers or highly educated anti-racism activists talking about race and saying race is a social construct, this is what they are referring to. This idea of white or black, those are sociological constructs, right? But those constructs were built on a certain biological reality. Now, I just know somebody's going to clip this out and try to use this to claim I'm a goddamn race realist, because I'm responding to someone who is quite a bit more popular than me. And even though this is going on YouTube, I am going to be going on TikTok and making a video directing people to come over here and look at my YouTube account. So I'm sure somebody's going to clip this out and they're going to try and do that to me too. Go ahead, cancel away. I would rather speak my truth and get canceled for it than just play it safe. So the issue I have with this is that, okay, so according to both my friend who had made these statements that this creator took umbrage with and this creator, what my friend did was somebody claimed that race was an entirely sociological construct and therefore they could claim to be whatever race they want. My friend then said, well, race is not entirely a sociological construct. And that was the part that this creator took umbrage with. I have not witnessed this encounter. The creator claims that he has video of it, but I haven't seen it. He claims he has it, but he hasn't posted it yet. So watch. If he does post it, I guarantee you it's going to cut out just right around that. Because if my friend is to be trusted, and I do believe he is, because he is always been a very, very particular person about saying exactly what he means, using very precise language. You would understand that he was not saying that race is not a sociological construct. He was saying it is not entirely a sociological construct, which is true. There are multiple aspects of it. Okay. So according to my friend, what then happened was he clarified that race is neither an entirely biological construct either, but nobody listened. The creator who took umbrage with my friend claims that he then invited my friend to participate in a discussion with several people of color. My friend then claimed that he reached out to them, but nothing ever happened as a result of it. The creator claims that my friend never reached out to them. I don't know what happened, but there's a reason one of these guys is my friend, and the other one is just some random jackass on the internet whom I used to like. I thought his videos were amusing. I agree with a lot of the things he says, but he's chasing clout instead of chasing truth, so fuck you, Joven. That's pretty much it. Y'all have a great day.